Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Bill Arnold, Executive Director of Blue Diamond Recreation, and this is Chapter 3 from my War Journal. July 5th was a very difficult day for me. I was sad to leave Debbie and the children. I knew it would be several weeks until I would see them again. My brother, Charles Arnold, picked me up at home in Fort Worth at 5 a.m. and drove me to Amarillo following our Independence Day 96-hour pass. We arrived at the Reserve Center around noon and had a nice party hosted by the local Coors beer distributor. And after dinner, we enjoyed an evening of drinks and cigars with Charles Wade Arnold, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Clark, and Major John Swain, who was the anti-tank tow platoon commander. On July 6th, we hosted Family and Media Day at the Reserve Center. The day went well, but I found myself a bit blue, missing Debbie and the children. In fact, I fell asleep in my hotel room at 3:30 p.m. and woke up disoriented and wishing I was in Fort Worth. There was a message on my phone from Taylor. His baseball team had defeated their opponent 15-4. The following morning, we boarded a flight to Miramar, California, and reported to the 4th Tank Battalion headquarters for briefings and additional gear distribution. We had reveille at 3 a.m. and were bused to the airport in Amarillo. We were billeted at the Best Western Motel in Miramar, very close to the headquarters. On July 9th, we conducted a 160-mile road march to the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center in 29 Palms, the same base where Taylor was born 8 years earlier. We were billeted with 1st Tank Battalion, the same unit in which I had served from 1991 to 94. The next 2 days were devoted to maintenance and weapons cleaning, and I gave the Scouts Base Liberty each evening until midnight. It was at that time I rented a car and decided to take a drive. These evenings were very enjoyable for me because they gave me a way to get away from the Marines, get something to eat, and visit old sites from days gone by. I ate dinner at Stefano's in Yucca Valley, drove out to Pappy and Harriet's in Pioneer Town, and even went on a long drive down to Palm Desert. On July 12th, we road marched to the now abandoned George Air Force Base in Victorville, California, for a military operations in urban terrain, or MOUT exercise, and to learn the specifics of what we called SASO operations, which stands for Security and Stability Operations. We sounded reveille at 6:15 a.m., then prepared the vehicles for movement to Victorville. While there, we worked very closely with the anti-tank tow platoon from the 1st Battalion, 23rd Marine Regiment, a reserve unit out of Lafayette, Louisiana. Classes were held on weapons manipulation, shooting on the move, and field training exercises. We also conducted round-robin training in QRF, or Quick Reaction Force operations, as well as foot patrols in a hostile city. These training exercises took place at the abandoned housing area aboard George Air Force Base. On July 16th, we moved to March Air Reserve Base in Riverside, California, for additional MOUT training until returning to 29 Palms on July 22nd. This was an eventful exercise for many reasons, and I took careful notes in my journal while at Riverside. A brief review of my journal notes indicates that I received several phone calls from my friend John O'Reilly, and he fed me sports scores and updates on the Tour of France. Lance Armstrong was vying for his 6th yellow jersey, and at that time there was no indication that he would be stripped of these titles because of blood doping. The following morning, we continued training for MOUT, paying particular attention to how to search a prisoner of war and how to construct entry control points. We also conducted our first combat vehicle training, referred to as driving lanes. Humvee drivers were taught various evasive driving techniques that would later serve us well once in Iraq. At approximately 7:30 p.m., while conducting driver training, we witnessed the death of a Marine Lance Corporal, and I won't tell you his name. He was a Marine from 1st Battalion, 23rd Marine Regiment. He was standing in the turret hatch when his Humvee rolled over. He was pronounced dead at the base hospital by the medical officer, although it was clear to us that he had died on the scene, most likely instantly. It was a traumatic experience for all of us. I was interviewed as part of a death investigation, but cleared of any wrongdoing. I had just taken over as range safety officer 20 minutes before he died. But his death greatly affected me. I had never been so close to a dead Marine. When I got to the scene, I saw him lying dead on the grass. Doc Devine looked at me and said, quote, "He's gone." I could smell the blood. My heart raced. My face got cold and I had difficulty breathing. His upper torso was still attached to his legs, but he had been flattened into a grisly pulp, and his body was held together only by his uniform. There was sticky blood in the grass, on the gravel, and on the asphalt pavement. There was panic in the air. Still, everyone acted appropriately and professionally. The Marine's death forced the base into a safety stand down, which is an operational pause so that each unit could take a collective deep breath and consider just how dangerous our jobs were. These stand downs required all unit leaders to reread all safety regulations, conduct risk assessments, and brief all the Marines on the inherent risks of combat training. I used the time to try and figure out the best and safest way to protect a turret gunner in the event of a vehicle rollover. I gathered up the vehicle commanders and we talked through the problem. We determined that in the event of a roll, all Marines in the vehicle except the driver would reach for the gunner's legs and pull him into the vehicle. Fortunately, we never had to try this. I'm not so sure it would have worked. We were all thrilled to leave March Air Force Base, and on the morning of July 22nd, we road marched back to 29 Palms to resume our training there. We felt as if we were going home. The uncertainty of the training, the personnel changes, the Marine's death were all wearing on the scouts and on me. Ironically, the training at George and March Air Force Base gave me less confidence. It reinforced my uncertainty, shook my confidence, and caused me to question my ability to lead the scouts effectively. Of course, I could not let on that I doubted myself. I had to put on a brave face. I began to wonder whether I had the mettle to do my job. And this self-doubt was something that plagued me throughout my deployment. On July 23rd, several of our Marines got sick, and we experienced our first taste of the hazards of barracks life, the spread of communicable diseases. We called this illness the plague, and over the next 2 weeks, over 20 scouts missed training due to the ailment. Chills, fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and flu-like symptoms sidelined each of my subordinate leaders, and all were sent back to the barracks for several days. It made the field training less than ideal, but it also gave some of the younger Marines the opportunity to take on new responsibilities, and the circumstances served us well once we deployed. That'll conclude chapter 3. We'll pick it up in a few days. Hope you all have a great day.